Perfect. Okay, so we're looking at, as you can see on the screen, hopefully, a data set that looks around your quality of life index. The quality of life index data I'm going to be looking and working with today comes from numbero.com. I'll include all the links to the data set and where you can find them in the follow-up email after the webinar. This data set every year looks at various different indexes, and it combines these indices into an overall quality of life index. I'll bring up that data set for you now. I've downloaded it and put it into Excel. So this is what we were seeing on the bottom of the screen just then. It's the quality of life index, and I've got multiple years in here. If I scroll down, we'll see we go from 2007 to 2016, all the way down to 2012. And we can see how this data set is structured. Now, I know you probably all want to get in and have a look at how to actually build a visualization in Tableau. But when I was learning Tableau, I found the hardest thing to get my head around was how Tableau needed the data to be structured. And there was nothing more frustrating than starting an analysis and finding out after a few clicks that actually how the data was structured meant I couldn't do what I wanted to do in Tableau. So the most important thing I can tell you in this webinar is data preparation and cleaning. It might be a really boring topic, but it's having a clean data set prepared well that you understand is the most important thing, the foundation for any good visualization. So we'll have a quick look at what's in this data set, and I'll also talk about how it's structured and how Tableau likes data to be structured. So we can see that in this data set, each individual column of data is one particular type. For instance, we have all our countries in one column, and we have all our years in another column. So all our years are stacked up on top of each other, all our countries are stacked up on top of each other, and each individual row of our data set is one discrete data point. For instance, row 2 is a data point for Austria in 2017. Now, how this data set is structured is how Tableau likes data to be structured. And if we scroll all the way down, an analogy you'll often hear is this is a tall, thin data set, a bit like a skyscraper. If I scroll all the way down, we'll see we have all our years. If you look at column L, I'll just highlight it there, stacked on top of each other, making this data set very tall. Oftentimes, if you are used to working with data in Excel, and I'll jump to the next tab I have here, which is the same data that I just went ahead and I took a few of the indices and pivoted them round. This is how you will often work with data in Excel. And you'll notice here, each country is an individual column. Now, if we pull this data into Tableau, I would be able to build a visualization, but Tableau would see each country as a separate field unrelated from each other. So I wouldn't be able to do things like build a map, because Tableau would see Austria not as a country field, but just as a separate field that has where Austria has nothing to do with Germany. Tableau wouldn't see these as fields that it could map, for instance. So if I have a data set structured like this, I would need to pivot it around. That's the terminology we use in Tableau. So flip it around on its axis to make it from this really wide data set into a tall, thin data set like this. At the end of this webinar, I'll point you at some great resources where you can learn about how to do things like pivot your data and clean it up a little bit. You can do it all in Tableau, which is fantastic. and it's beginning to understand data structure is really really helps you get the most out of any data you want to analyze. So let's jump in, and I'll open up Tableau Public. I just turned my volume up a little bit. I heard see a few people in the comments were having a little trouble hearing me. And when Tableau Public opens up, we're going to go ahead and connect it to this data set. There we go. Obviously, a new version came out last night. So our data set is in Excel. So I will click on Excel and go ahead and navigate to where my data set was. It's my quality of life index data. So I'll just go ahead and open that up. This may take a few moments to open up because what Tableau Public is doing is dragging all the data in for me. Here we go. Now, on my left-hand side, I can see each of my individual worksheets in my Excel workbook. Tableau has set out for me over here, and I want to grab my quality of life index data and just drag and drop it onto this canvas where it says drag sheets here. And what Tableau will do is it will build a preview of that data set for me. Now, this is a great place to see if your data looks like it does in Excel. And having a look, it looks pretty good. We can see Tableau has recognized the country field as a geographic field. And you can tell it's done that because it's put this little tiny globe icon above it. Any fields that Tableau recognizes as a geographic field means you can easily build a map with it. And any field that Tableau has recognized in a different format than you want it to, you can go ahead and change that. If I move all the way across to my climate index, I can see that Tableau has recognized my climate index as a text string, not as a number. And if we remember looking at our original data set, it is a decimal point number. For instance, for Austria for 2017, this index is 62.13. So I can go ahead and change that by clicking on the little ABC icon and telling Tableau that this isn't a text string, but it's actually a decimal number. And now Tableau has gone ahead and changed that number into a decimal for me. Now, this mightn't come across very clearly on the webinar, but the little hashtag, the pound symbol that Tableau gives to fields it recognizes as numbers, for the climate index is actually blue, while for all my other indices, Tableau has recognized it and given it a green color. We'll have a talk about what these colors mean in just a second. That's a sort of second place that I found when I got started with Tableau. It was really helpful to understand the difference in these little colors Tableau gives things. The last thing is it has recognized my year field as a number. Now, this actually makes a bit of sense. The number 2017, as it was formatted in Excel, 2017, looks like a number. It doesn't look like it's formatted like a year. So I want to tell Tableau that this number here is actually a year field and it should treat it like a date. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the little hashtag pound sign and tell Tableau, no, treat this as a date field. Tableau now treats it as a date field. You can see it's formatted it to look like a date, and because this data is only showing years, by default Tableau gives it the 1st of January for every year, and it's put a little calendar icon above it. Having a look at your data and understanding what's in your data set is really important to make sure you Tableau recognizes the data in the format you think it should be recognized in. If we have enough time, we can see we've got a few other worksheets here in my Excel workbook with data in them. If we have enough time, I'll jump back and I'll show you how you can connect multiple data sets together. I have some metadata about countries from the World Bank, which includes fields like geographic region and also the World Bank's categorization of countries. For instance, if countries are part of OECD, or if they're high income, low income, etc. So if we have enough time, I'll jump back and show you how you can add extra information to a data set by joining additional data onto it. Now, this all looks good, so let's get started and jump to sheet 1. I'm going to do that by clicking this orange tab in the bottom left-hand corner that says sheet 1 on it, and this will open up our first blank canvas. Now, just before we begin to build anything in Tableau, I'll explain some of the things we're seeing here on the canvas. Firstly, this whole white area, this is what we call the canvas, and at the moment it's white because we have no data on it yet. Now, I mentioned a little bit earlier these blue and green things. On the left-hand side, we can see Tableau has categorized our data into dimensions and measures. Now, these are fundamental ways that Tableau categorizes and treats data. Dimensions are fields that you can group your data by. These are usually your categorical fields. For instance, I can group my data by country. I can also group it by year. Measures are the fields that Tableau wants to perform mathematical functions on. These are things I can add together, I can take an average of, I can multiply together. These are what Tableau puts in our measures, and usually measures are numeric. So normally most of your fields with your little hashtag pound sign that Tableau has recognized as number fields will be in your measures. And the last thing you'll see, and this mightn't come across very clearly on the webinar, is that we have some fields, particularly our dimensions, that Tableau has colored in blue, and some fields that Tableau has colored in green. The difference between blue and green means discrete or continuous. Blue fields are discrete fields. Green fields are continuous. So what's a continuous field? A continuous field is something that the numbers follow on from each other. For instance, it's treating my year field as continuous. That is 2016, the year is followed by the year 2017. And there is no break between them. If Tableau treated, I could tell Tableau to treat this my year field, for instance, as discrete, and that means 2016, 1 year would be one entire year separate from 2017. There'd be no continuity in the dates between them. So these are just little ways that Tableau categorizes your data, and you can drag and drop and change fields between dimensions and measures, and you can also tell Tableau that different fields are discrete or continuous. You can find all of these options anywhere in Tableau where you hover your mouse over a field and see a tiny arrow. Tableau loves tiny arrows. Tiny arrows mean options, and if you click on a small arrow, you can see all the options that you can do with a particular field, data point, or visualization. We'll have a look at some of these things a little later on. Now let's go ahead and grab our country field and start to build a visualization. Just got a few people who've joined in a little bit late and asking about where you can grab the data. I'm going to send it out after the webinar for everyone, and I'm also recording this webinar so you'll be able to look back through it afterwards. So we're going to have build two different visualizations today. We're going to build a map and a scatter plot, and I'm going to show you two different ways to build visualizations. In Tableau, there are many different ways you can do things, and it's which is great. So I'll show you a few different ways we can do this. First way I'm going to show you is we're going to build a map by clicking on this thing called Show Me in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. Show Me is Tableau's helpful cheat sheet, your helpful friend. It's a bit like from Windows 95, that paperclip that jumped around to give you tips. It's like that, but far more useful and less annoying. Now, if you have a look at the Show Me menu, you'll see that I have a few fields that are colored in. I have two mapping options, a symbol map and a field map, and I also have this option here that will let me build a text table. Now, if you keep your eyes on this Show Me field, I'm going to unhighlight my country field. And you can see that if I have no data highlighted, or if I don't have any data already on my canvas, Tableau doesn't give me any Show Me options. And as soon as I click to highlight a field or multiple fields, Tableau will highlight the visualization types that are possibly the best way to show this data. And if you look down a little bit lower, it will also tell you what kind of data you need for any particular visualization. Now I'm going to go ahead and use a field map. So I'm just going to click on the field map option. I'll minimize the Show Me, and Tableau, you can see, has built a map for us. Now, even without any additional data on this map is pretty helpful. It's telling me that I have a lot of countries represented in Europe, North America, Asia, and quite a few in Latin America, but I'm missing most of Africa in this data set. So that's interesting for me to know, and that's a little caveat I might want to think about when I am working with this data set here. Now, the first thing I'm probably going to want to look at is what is the quality of life index around the world. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my quality of life index and just drag and drop it onto the canvas. I'll let it go, and Tableau will automatically color in each country with its quality of life index. Now, before we go any further, I should have a look at what Tableau is doing here. So because my quality of life index is a measure by default to Tableau, and I'm going to hold this in what we call the marks card here, I can see that Tableau is summing up my quality of life index. Now, I remember I have from 2012 to 2017 in my data set. So it's timesing together the quality of life index for each country for each year. So this is showing me the total quality of life index. For this data set, I would like to, because it is an index and not something that makes much sense if we times it together, I'm going to go ahead. We could either change with this tiny drop-down arrow and say changes from a measure to an average, or I can say only look at individual years at a particular time. So I'm going to go ahead and just for this piece of work, only look at 2017, the most recent year. So what I've done is I've dragged and dropped my year field onto the filter tile, and Tableau's asking me how I'd like to filter this data. I want to say I only want to look at years, and I only want to look at 2017. So now I've only got 2017 in the data set. And I can see that Tableau has changed my number range from before, I think it was negative 100 and something, the index, to 0 to 190. So this tells me that it has filtered out all the years except for 2017. And it also makes me wonder if Numbro, where I got this data set from, has changed how it calculates the quality of life index, because it appears from 2017 at least that I have no negative quality of life index numbers. So I'd probably want to go back to Numbro.com and have a look at how it calculates the quality of life index. Because if this has changed in recent years, it might mean I want to take that into account when I analyze my data. Now, while I can see that particular countries for instance, China, Russia, Indonesia, and Venezuela have very low quality of life indices, as they're this light blue, it's still quite hard to really tell the difference between the countries with this color scale. Color is really important for data visualization. It's what we call a pre-attentive attribute. This is something that humans are very good at seeing and distinguishing between at a glance. So I want to change the colors used in this visualization to really highlight the contrast between the countries with a lower quality of life index and countries with a higher quality of life index. I'm going to do that by changing the colors. Now, anything we see on this canvas, we can change its appearance by changing things within the marks card. The marks card, which is in this middle column here, over on the left-hand side, is where you can control the appearance of your visualization. For instance, I can see as soon as I dropped quality of life onto the canvas, Tableau automatically put that onto color for me. I can see because it's got this little color icon, and it's on the that's matched by the color tile. You can drag and drop any fields directly onto the marks card. So if I wanted to change the field I'm showing on color, I could, for instance, drag a different field and drag and drop it over the color tile, which will change the colors. I can also click on the color tile and edit the colors that are displayed. So I'm going to go from the automatic blue scale to, let's go blue-orange diverging. And I'll click apply to see what this will look like. That's much better. I can see there's a much wider color variation now, and I can really, the countries with the lower quality of life index really stand out. I'll hit OK. Now this immediately brings up a few surprising results. I would not have thought that Venezuela had the lowest quality of life index. I might have expected maybe some countries within Africa or the Middle East to have the lowest quality of life index. But actually, according to Number, it is Venezuela. So this is really interesting, and I might want to go in and dig in and try and understand how Number has calculated its quality of life index and why Venezuela is so low. Is it maybe because quality of life in Venezuela is very low, or maybe there are issues collecting or quantifying the data for Venezuela? I've mentioned a few times that we'd want to go back and check a few things about how this data was collected. So if I open up Numbro.com again, where we collected this data from, they really helpfully tell you how they calculate these indices. And we can go in here and we can see how they calculated the quality of life. We can also see that maybe that intuition we had that something changed in how Numbro.com calculated quality of life because we had negative numbers and then in 2017 we didn't. We can see that this probably is the case. Before 2015, they were using a different formula. And we can also see how they calculate the quality of life index. And for each indice, what indicates a good, the best you can get. For instance, cost of living, lower is better. And we're going to have a look at cost of living in just a second. So if I jump back to my visualization, so now we've built a map, and I've already found some really interesting insights from this. I'm going to go ahead and call this, rename the sheet to map. So I just right-clicked on the sheet name. I'll call it map. I'm just doing this because if you really get into analysis and you have sheet 1 to sheet 14, I know I can never remember what I did on sheet 7. So we'll name our sheets as we go along. Now the next thing I want to do, I had cost of living highlighted there. I want to see how cost of living impacts on your quality of life. This is something that sort of banged around in the back of my head. I see that a lot of Europe, North America, and parts of Asia have a very high quality of life index. And in my mind, that might have something to do with these countries that have where people have more money, and maybe having more money means you have a higher quality of life. So let's go ahead and test that theory. So I'm going to open up a new worksheet. You do that by clicking the new worksheet icon down here on the lower left-hand side. You could also go up and go worksheet, new worksheet. So we've got a new blank canvas. And this time we're going to have a look at the quality of life index, and I'm going to drag that up and drag it onto my rows and columns. This is a different way you can build a visualization. We had a look at the Show Me menu before. Now we're going to show you how to directly drag things onto the rows and columns, and let that go. And then we're going to grab our cost of living index and put that onto my rows. Now, your rows and columns are your X and Y axes, and that's really easy to see here in our beginning of our scatter plot. Now, this doesn't look much like a scatter plot at the moment. We only have this one sole data point up here in the upper right-hand corner of our visualization. What Tableau is doing is, if we have a look at the rows and columns, it's showing me the total sum of all my quality of life for all my countries and my total sum of my cost of living for all my countries. And so that number is right up here in the upper right-hand corner. What I need to do is I need to tell Tableau to show me all my countries. And I can do that by grabbing my country field and just dragging and dropping it onto the canvas. And Tableau split all my countries out. And again, if I see here, I don't have anything on my filters. I want to be consistent from my map. So I'm going to go ahead and again add my year, drag it into my filters, and filter down and just show 2017. And we can see there my data changed quite a bit. So now we can go ahead and start having a look at how quality of life index, which we have down here, compares to our cost of living. Now, personal preference, I prefer scatter plots where the circles are filled in. So I'm going to go ahead and on my marks card, change the appearance of this scatter plot. I'm going to click on the shape icon. And at the moment, by default, it gives me this open circle. I'm just going to go ahead and change it to a closed circle. I just find that easier to see. And now let's go ahead and begin to add some more visual clues to this scatter plot. And when we finish this building the scatter plot, I'll have a quick break and answer any questions you have so far. So if you have any questions, put them into the Q&A or the chat box, and we'll have a quick break after this while I can answer some questions for you. I'm going to go ahead and add a few visual differentiators to this data set. At the moment, it is useful, and I can see that quality of life index and cost of living, if we remember, we had a quick look, cost of living higher, the lower was the better, so that means your cost of living isn't very high. Numbro said that. But we can see some of our countries with a very high quality of life index have a very high cost of living. So for instance, Norway and Switzerland have high quality of life indexes, but they also have very high cost of living. So that sort of shows that for some countries, even if you have to, if living there is very expensive, they must have other things that make them have a high quality of life. And we can also see that we have some countries down here that have a high quality of life, comparatively high quality of life. I've got Poland highlighted at the moment, but have what seems to be a comparatively low cost of living. Maybe these countries would be a great place to live to have a good quality of life and not have to spend a lot of money to live there. But it's hard to tell what's above and below average. That would be really helpful for us to be able to see which countries are above average for quality of life and which countries are below average for cost of living, because that would be the ultimate, a really high quality of life with a low cost of living. So to do that, we're going to grab, up here we've been working on our data tab. We're going to go and click on this analytics tab. The analytics tab lets you do a few things with your data. It lets you, for instance, add an average line, and depending what type of data you're showing, you can also add trend lines or use a k-means cluster to group your data together. I'm just going to go ahead and grab an average line, and if you drag and drop it towards the canvas, you get this pop-up box. And this tells you where you'd like to add your reference line, in this case, which is an average line too. And I want to add an average line for both my quality of life and cost of living, so I can see each quadrant which is above or below average. So I'm just going to drag and drop that there. And now I can see my table is divided up. So the countries down here have an above average quality of life, but below average cost of living. So these are the countries that you'd want to, that have a very high quality of life, but are relatively cheap to live in. While the countries up here have a very high quality of life, but are also much more expensive. And this might be something that you need to consider. I also said we want to add a bit of visual differentiation to this scatter plot. So I'm going to go ahead and add my quality of life index back to my color to match my map. And again, by default, Tableau has given me this blue scale. I'll change my color and make it that blue-orange diverging scale to match our map. I'm doing this so it makes it really visually apparent that the colors on the map match the colors on our scatter plot for the same field. So quality of life will always have this orange-blue diverging scale. And now I want to add a size. I want to make the countries with a higher quality of life bigger as well, because it's a little hard to see down here some countries with a higher and lower quality of life index. So I'll go ahead and drag and drop quality of life index onto size. So that really drills home at the color and the size. The countries with a higher quality of life index are bigger over here, and those with a lower quality of life index get smaller across. And there's little Venezuela over there with a quality of life index of 0. This is something we probably want to have a look at and see why that is. So I'll stop here for a second and answer any questions we have coming into the chat and the Q&A box. And after I've done this, we'll go ahead and put these two sheets together onto something called a dashboard and see how we can use a dashboard to have interactions between various different sheets we've built. Cool. So I'm just having a quick look back through the questions. Somebody's asking some questions about maps. When a country region is not in Tableau, what do you do? Asia and Oceania without the country name. What do you do if you are trying to create a map with a field Tableau doesn't recognize as a geographic field? If you Google Tableau has a list of all the, if you Google what does Tableau recognize as geographic fields, Tableau has a list of all the kinds of data that it recognizes as a geographic field. If you have any of that particular data kind in your data set, you can tell Tableau that it's a geographic field and it will map it for you. If you have data in there that Tableau doesn't automatically recognize as a geographic field, for instance, Asia and Oceania, you won't be able to build a map with it unless you have are able to join separate data on that is something that Tableau can map. I'll point you where you can find some more information about maps. And also, after the webinar, feel free to email in and we can go through sort of mapping in more detail. We also have probably have an upcoming webinar about mapping. And if we don't, there's a place where you can register interest in upcoming webinars, and we can let you know when we have our next mapping webinar coming up. A few people saying that there must have been some lag, and after I jumped to numbro.com, it didn't come back. You weren't able to see when I moved back to Tableau. If lots of people are having that issue, please let me know. I am recording this webinar and recording my screen, so you will be able to see it in the recording I send out afterwards. Cool. So it sounds like I can't see any other questions coming through, so perfect. Let's jump in and begin to combine these two worksheets together into a dashboard, and then be able to see how we can get some interaction happening between them and how that can help us analyze our data more. So I'm going to go ahead and rename my sheet 2 to scatterplot. And now I'm going to go ahead and make a dashboard. And to do that, I'm going to click on the second icon here in my lower left-hand corner of the screen, which says New Dashboard. Again, you can also click on the Dashboard menu at the top, New Dashboard. Now, a dashboard is a type of canvas, a place where you can combine multiple worksheets in Tableau together, multiple visualizations together in one place, and have interactions happen between them. And that can really help you with your analysis. Dashboards, by default, Tableau will give it a dashboard size. I'm going to go ahead and change that size to automatic just to make it fit up my whole screen. If you are going to publish your dashboard out for other people to see, it's worthwhile thinking a little bit about what size screen most of your viewers will be looking at your dashboard on. If you build a desktop size screen dashboard, but you think most of your viewers will be looking at this visualization on their mobile, they mightn't have a very good viewing experience. So you might need to think about changing your dashboard size or using something called Device Designer. If that's a feature Tableau has, it lets you change how your dashboard looks depending what size screen people are viewing it on. There's a video on Device Designer on the Tableau Public video page with more information about it. Now, dashboards let you join multiple, have interactions between multiple worksheets. I'm going to go ahead and grab my map and drag and drop it onto the dashboard. I'm also going to go and grab my scatter plot and drag it, and I'm going to drop it underneath my map. You might be able to see there's a gray box that moves around when I move my mouse. This is letting me know when I release my scatter plot where it's going to snap to on the dashboard canvas. So I'll just drop it underneath my map. And now what I want to be able to do is I would really like to be able to know when I hover my mouse over a country, where that country is on my map. For instance, I want to know where Australia sits on compared to other countries for quality of life and cost of living. So I'm going to want to be able to click on a country and have that country highlight on the scatter plot. Or I would also want to be able to click on a country on the scatter plot, in this case Ireland, and probably see where Ireland is on the map. So to do that, I'm going to add a highlight filter action. Now, I can do that by clicking this little highlighter icon up here in the just under my menu selection, I can click on the highlight and I can say what fields I want Tableau to highlight. I'm going to say all fields on all sheets. And so now if I click on Australia on the map, I can see there's Australia in my scatter plot. I can see it has a above average cost of living, and is also in sort of probably the top 5 or 6 countries for cost of living, and has an above average quality of life as well. And if I click, I will unhighlight all of those fields. So this is a great way to let you explore the scatter plot through the map. It's sometimes easier to, I wanted to, let's say, have a look at France, be able to find that on a map instead of having to find it either in a drop-down filter or hover my mouse over all the different icons to find where it is within my scatter plot. And now I want to see what countries I have the 2 highest quality of life indices. It's Austria and Germany. And if I drag and highlight, I can highlight multiple fields on my map or on my scatter plot. So I can say, here are my 2 countries with my highest quality of life. And also I can see they have above average cost of living. They don't have the highest cost of living. And now let's say I want to see all these countries which have below average cost of living but above average quality of life, especially these countries up here which have sort of very high quality of life. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight all of these countries, and I can see that all of these countries are within Europe. So it looks like, at least according to Numbro.com, if I want to live in a country with a very high quality of life, but a lower cost of living, I want to live in Europe, and I want to live in either Spain or Portugal, Cyprus, Croatia, Bosnia, Czech Republic, or Estonia. So using highlight filters is a great way to begin to answer questions really quickly. And what have I been able to find about quality of life and cost of living? Actually, the countries with the highest quality of life are pretty expensive. So if I want to get live somewhere where I have a high quality of life but don't have a huge cost of living, it looks like I want to live in Spain or Portugal, which are the 2 highest countries with below average cost of living but above average quality of life. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight that point here. I'm going to do that by clicking on the data point, and I'm going to add an annotation, and I'm going to say Spain and Portugal. High quality of life and a lower cost of living. And they also get far more sun than the UK, so maybe I should think about moving to Spain or Portugal. I'm just going to go ahead and move that down so it doesn't cover all my other data points. Now this is getting ready for me to publish. Now, while I know what's going on here, if I publish this and shared this with my colleagues, they probably wouldn't know what I was showing on this visualization. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a title and give a few more clues around what this data actually is. So I don't need to tell people that this map is a map. It's quite obvious. So I'm going to hide this sheet title. But I am going to go ahead and add a title for this whole dashboard. So I'm going to call this Quality of Life. Where should I live if I want a high quality of life at a lower cost. I'm going to go ahead and make this look more like a title. I'll make the font big, I'll make it bold. There we go. So now people will just know what I'm showing here. And this scatter plot, it's great at saying scatter plot, but it's not really helping people quickly understand what the scatter plot is showing. So I'm going to edit this sheet title from the sheet name to what it's showing. So it's showing quality of life compared to cost of living. And I will hit OK. One thing that's really cool you can do with worksheet titles is if you do have any fields, let's say I wanted want to show multiple years. Let's say instead of filtering to just 2017, I wanted to show all my years. You can insert fields in here that have these little caret arrows next to them, and these fields are dynamic. So if you filter the data down, these fields will change. Also, if the data updates, these fields will update with it. It's a pretty neat trick. So that's looking pretty good. The last thing I need to do is tell people where I got this data from. There are a few ways I can do that. I'm going to go ahead and actually add Numbeo.com's logo and hyperlink to the page. So if people want more information, they can click on the image and hyperlink to the Numbeo.com website. So I'm going to go ahead and grab an image field from down here, my objects in the lower left-hand corner where I got my text box from, and drag it up and put it next to the title. I'll go ahead and I got my Numbeo.com logo there. I'll just go ahead and resize it and make it fit. And the last thing I'm going to do is put a URL. If you click on the logo, it will take you to my quality of life index page. So I'll just copy the URL from there and go ahead and paste it onto my worksheet. Now if you hover over the logo, we get a pop-up box with a hyperlink to where this data came from. Now the last thing I'm going to do is give myself a little, some of these pixels back. So I want to make my visualizations as big as possible, and this is sort of a lot of wasted space over here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my color key and change it from being fixed to floating. Now floating means I can move it and place it wherever I would like. So I'll place it down here. And I think it's quite obvious that the bigger the circles, the higher the quality of life, because you can see that the size trend is following the color trend. So I'm actually just going to delete that key, but I could again, of course, move it and put it somewhere else. So there we go, got a little bit more space back to my visualization. And now I could go ahead and publish this to Tableau Public. I'm going to do that by clicking File, Save to Tableau Public as, and moment of truth, do I remember my password? Yes, I have, and I'll give this a meaningful title. Today's date, 20, and hit save. And now what Tableau is doing is it's packaging up all of the data and all of the visualizations we've made and publishing them up to the Tableau Public profile for you. By default, the sheet you're on when you hit save is the one that gets displayed and the first URL that's made for you. So if, just make sure you are on the sheet you want to be displayed. You can also go ahead and edit your details. And this is a place where it lets you change some of your options. I can change and choose what I want to show. I might want to show the link to the controls. I can also show all my worksheets as tabs. I don't want to do that. That would show the maps sheet and the scatter plot sheet as well. I just want people to be able to see the final dashboard. And the last thing I can do here is add a permalink. Now, a permalink, if you're going to embed this on a web page or your blog, it's really good to put your the page is going to be embedded on as a permalink. Now, what that means is when somebody finds, if somebody looks at your visualization on the Tableau Public page, your web page that is a permalink will be sitting behind the visualization. So the visualization will be a light box sitting on top of your web page, and this is a great way to be able to drive traffic to your web page as well, and also to let people know that there might be another place they could view this visualization. This is all okay for me at the moment, so I don't need to change any of that, so I'll just say got it. And now I'm going to go ahead and embed this onto a blog. So I'm going to grab the share icon. I'm going to grab my embed code and just copy that. And here in the Blogger blog, I'm just going to go ahead and paste that embed code on there. Now I want to make sure this has got a bunch of JavaScript tags in it that I want to make sure are working and active. So when you embed your embed code in, make sure it's in HTML mode or embed mode or code mode. The rich text or the compose mode will clean up all those JavaScript tags and the embed code won't work. So I'll just go ahead and click publish, and this will publish this for me. And let's go ahead and view what we've just embedded in. So now I've made my visualization in Tableau Public, I've published it to the web, and this is now showing how slow my internet connection is. While this slowly loads up, there we go, we can now see we have all the same interactivity on the embedded visualization that we did on the Tableau Public page and also on our original visualization that we built. So that's how you build it. Start from a data set, analyze the data, and build a visualization and publish it into Tableau Public. I've got a few minutes left, so please, if you have any other questions, drop them into the chat box or the Q&A box. And I promised you that I'd show you a few extra places you could get some resources for learning more with Tableau. So I'll point you to those right now and also answer the questions I see coming into the chat and the Q&A box. So a few people have asked about additional trainings. There are some places you can go get some more training. There on the Tableau Public page, we have all our upcoming live training on the live training tab. We've got another live training coming up in a few days on advanced statistics on the 25th of April at 1 in the afternoon London time, 8 p.m. in Singapore, or that would be 8 in the morning in New York. That's really, my colleague Florian will be running this, and if you're interested in sort of more advanced statistics in Tableau, I recommend this webinar for you. If you would like to sign up to a webinar and you don't see it on here at the moment, please just let us know on our registration form. We email out about once a quarter with all our new upcoming training times. So even if we have a training time that isn't displayed on here yet, we'll let you know when it comes up next. Talking about training, there's also a whole lot of really great training we can get on the Tableau corporate website. This is tableau.com. Tableau Public is the free version of Tableau corporate. Tableau and the visualization I first show you, this is in the paid version of the software, so you can see it looks almost exactly the same as the free version. And that means that all the training videos on the corporate site are really relevant to Tableau Public as well. These are all free to watch. You just need to enter in your email address before you start playing them. And I said at the start, pivoting and data cleaning was really important. On the Tableau corporate side, there are a whole lot of extra videos about connecting and cleaning your data, including how to join multiple data sets together and how to prepare and pivot Excel and text files. So well worth watching there. There's also some great videos on mapping. So if you had a question a little earlier around mapping, these will be a great place to start about how to build different types of maps and also have links to some extra resources around mapping. Another great place to go to learn a little bit more about Tableau is on the Tableau community page. Again, you'll need to just log in. It's free, but with an email address. This is Tableau community, and it's a great place to search for questions, because chances are somebody might have asked the same question that you want to ask as well, and it's already been answered. Or you can just go ahead and ask a question. And so I loaded this page just at the start of the webinar. So somebody had asked a question, how to show multiple measures in a single table with rank, and somebody answered less than an hour after they answered their question, put their question up there. So it's a great place to go to ask questions, and people can answer. We also on the Tableau, and I will give you I'll give you links to all of these right now. I'll just drop them into the chat box. That's the training on the corporate site. Here are the Tableau forums. And lastly, on Tableau Public, we have started a Slack channel just to see if there's another way that people can, where people in the Tableau community can ask questions and help each other out. So if you are interested in checking out what that is, put the link into the chat box as well. Feel free to join up and join the Tableau Public Slack channel. I think we have about 400 people on there at the moment, and some really active users who are great at helping each other out. Cool. So I'll just go ahead and answer some of the questions that came through. Some people are asking, how can you gain experience working with Tableau? Best advice I can give you is just start building things. And for that, lots of people say, where can I find data sets? There is a great Tableau Makeover Monday, a great community initiative by the Tableau community called Makeover Monday. And every Sunday night or Monday morning, depending on where in the world you are, they release a data set. I'll put this into the chat box as well, and I'll link to all of these in the follow-up email. So they release a data set and for everyone to make over. And so these are all data sets based on actual visualizations, so things people find in press, on government websites, and they give you the data set. They give a link to the original data source and article around it, and people go ahead and build the visualizations. It's great because lots of other people are working on the same data set that you will be working on or have, and then you can see what people do. And you can go ahead and when people publish these, you can often go ahead and download the visualization. So if you want to learn how they made something, you can either contact them and ask them, or download the visualization and back solve how they did it. So that's one great way to start regularly building data sets and visualizations. I'd also recommend just find something you're interested in, be that how your daily run, if you use Strava or something like that, and begin to see what you can find with the data. A few more questions coming through. So I realize we're just on time, so I'll try and answer these quite quickly. Can you increase the circle size? Yes, you sure can. I'll go back to my scatter plot. If you wanted to proportionally increase the size of all these circles, just click on the size icon in the Marks tab, and you can bump them all up or make them smaller. You could also add a different field onto size. Here I put quality of life. I could equally put cost of living, and I can do that just by dragging and dropping over the size tile on the Marks tab. And now we've got cost of living on size instead of quality of life. Should be possible to see an interactive dashboard showing the evolution of quality of life by year without selecting filters. Yes, if you wanted to show how quality of life changes over the years, I'll go back to the map. I can either show this filter so people can choose individual years, and I might go ahead, once again, Tableau, tiny arrows, options, everything has tiny arrows. Just hover your mouse over till you find them, and then you can see what you can do. For instance, I could change this to a slider, and then I can change the year and see how the quality of life changes. For this, I might want to add a caveat that how they calculate the quality of life changed in late 2015, just to sort of let people know that they countries aren't not all the same fields are used all the time. Hopefully that answered your question. Can you please show me how to make calculated fields? If you're interested in making calculated fields, I think we've got a calculation webinar coming up in the next 2 weeks. So go ahead and sign up for that one. You can also have a look at how to make calculations on the Tableau.com training site. There are 16 videos on calculations. Go ahead and have a look. They're all free and they're really useful. You can also feel free to email me and the Tableau Public team any questions you have at public@tableau.com. Just enter that into the chat box there as well. I'll add all of these links to the follow-up email. Some people asking where can they find publicly available data. There's publicly available data everywhere. That's a big question. We're actually looking to do a series of blog posts around finding and cleaning data sources. So keep an eye on the Tableau Public blog, and I think that set of blogs are coming out over May, so they should be coming out in a few weeks' time. But if that's something you would like to learn more about, let us know in the webinar suggestion box, and maybe it's something we can look at doing a webinar on in the future as well. And the last one is, can we build real-time dashboards using Tableau Public? Yes, you can. You can, if you use a Google Sheets, and you can get data to drop into Google Sheets as it happens. You can connect that to Tableau Public, and the Google Sheets refresh once every 24 hours. So not completely real time, but it will refresh every 24 hours. Hopefully that's answered all your everyone's questions. And we're a little bit over time, so thank you so much for joining. And look for the follow-up email that'll be coming out after this. And if you do have any other questions, do feel free to email the public team at public@tableau.com. Thank you so much for joining. It's been lovely giving you guys this webinar today. From me, I hope you have a good morning, and depending where in the world you're dialing in from, have a good afternoon or a good evening as well. Thank you so much.